دختران شبانه های بی امید، دختران شکسته های بی صدا، ای چراغ های آسمان سوخته، با من از سپیده های گم شده عشق سر کنید. دختران شناسنامه هایتان شاهنامه عداوت است. این چنین اگر غروب چشم هایتان ادامه یافت، این چنین اگر وفایتان به جوهای کوچک حقیر پوست داد، این چنین اگر یقینتان سیاه ماند، سنگ فرش می شوید. So the poet is beginning with the directing to girls and women, saying, you are the hopeless nights, you are the broken voices, you are the burned out light in the sky, you're already burned and you're in darkness. Come and join me. Your identities are your enemy. But if you close your eyes to the darkness, in the darkness, and if you lose your hope, and if your hopes become dark and black, then you become the doormat, you become the tile under the feet of others. So the poem is actually asking to women to stand up, to make voice, not to keep quiet. And this is what we want today, not just from Afghan women. We want all the women in all the world to stand up with us, to be our voice, because there are so many girls inside Afghanistan who will not have this voice. So like Khaled Forough, I, as an Afghan woman, will like you women to start becoming our voice, to give our message to the world, to stand up for us and with us, because this is the dark time for us. And I hope the light will come soon. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Froher. I'm going to pass the floor to Salome Mbugua, who is the co-president in the European Network of Migrant Women. Salome, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anna. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, good morning. I know, and I've seen that there are so many people joining from different parts of the world. We would like to welcome you and also thank you for joining us to discuss about what's happening, and especially with the women from Afghanistan this afternoon. I know all of us are in solidarity with all the women, girls, and people of Afghanistan. And I know it's also a very difficult time for those people who are still stuck in Afghanistan itself. It's unbearable and unimaginable of what we are seeing in televisions, seeing in newspaper what is being written, and hearing from many different people, including people with different differences. And from ENoMW, European Network of Migrant Women, which has more than 50 group and organizations as members from over 20 European countries, we are in solidarity with all women and girls of Afghanistan. And we join you, and we join every woman from Afghanistan and girls at this very difficult time. We also know that 50% of those who are in need of humanitarian assistance are indeed women and girls. At ENoMW, we are particularly concerned about the situation of women and girls, and we keep on repeating about them, and I keep on repeating about it, because we all know that women are the backbone of the society. And when the society is broken, everything is broken, including the women themselves. We also know during the time of crisis, violence against women and girls increases. Indeed, the world has to act now. We do not have to come with the resolutions for what should be done after so many people have lost their lives, after so many women have suffered and girls have suffered, that we come up with the resolutions to determine on what should be done after people have lost their lives. And so we hereby call the world leaders, wherever they are, to take actions now. Actions is more needed, more than ever before now. And we do not need to delay anymore to be able to save women, the lives of women and girls and people of Afghanistan from the Taliban. So this afternoon, we'll hear from different people who will be speaking on what is happening, you know, and the situation there. And for me, I'm just here to open and just welcome everybody and to say thank you very much. And we are looking forward to communicate more moving forward. Thank you. I return it back to you, Anna. Thank you.
Thank you, Salome. I just want to say that we are still waiting for some of the speakers to join. And I already mentioned that in the beginning that some of our speakers may not be able to join, or they may join later. And so we will have to change the order. We expected this first speech would be done by Mahbouba Seraj. She's not here yet, but we're hoping she will join us soon. So I do not know if we have here, do we have here already Zuhra Karimi?
No.
No, not yet. Okay. Maybe we can go to Zuhra then.
Thank you for giving me the floor. My name is Zuhra Bahman, and I'm speaking with you from 3 different perspectives today. I'm the country director for Search for Common Ground. It's an organization that focuses on peace building, bringing in together and finding the common ground between people from communities that are in conflict, and that is my professional hat. But I want to tell you 2 other identities that I'd like to focus on more today here with as I talk to you. One of them is that I lived under the Taliban rule when they came in the first time in the late 90s. I was a young child. Well, I was a teenager, and all the memories are very vivid. The last time I was in Mazar Sharif, and we actually left on a plane that looked very much the same as the planes that we're seeing at Kabul airport today. And I have the same sentiments. I understand some of the sentiments, but some of the sentiments I don't understand of people fleeing. The parts that I understand are that the fact that you have to pack and you have to leave and you have to really prioritize what you want to take, and you never know what you're leaving towards and what you are leaving behind. There's a lot of uncertainty. But what I don't understand is the fact that compared to the people escaping Afghanistan now, I did not have a lot to lose. I was a child brought up in civil war, and I had a very small world. And compared to the girls and women and men as well of Afghanistan of the 21st century, I had very little. I live in Afghanistan in Kabul, in 𝐒𝐁𝐍. It's a very beautiful neighborhood, and sorry, I will get emotional. And I walk around it a lot. I love walking, and I walk a lot, crazy amounts in Kabul. every time I walk, and my friends know this, and there's a little joke that we have, that every time we see these young people, and then we say, look at them, they're so free, and they really have this sort of, the way they walk is different to my generation. And then we always say, look at them, they don't know the Taliban, as a morbid joke. And they really are like that. They walk in the middle of the roads, and they hold their head higher up than I did when I was their age. And so I don't know that feeling. But one thing I know is that this must be when I took the plane, we were one of the 2-3 families that were taking the plane. The plane was actually taking some diplomats, and we found, my mother, me, and my sister and little brother found our way onto that plane, and we went to Pakistan through it. But the sheer amount in the logistics at Kabul airport is terrifying. I also sympathize with the feeling of dread that these girls are feeling. I remember, I will never forget the last time I attended school. I was in year 8 and saying goodbye to everybody. And more harrowing than that is when my brother came a few days later, and he said, do you remember Bilqis from your class? And I said, yes. And remember when we were 14, and she said Bilqis got married to the kid that runs the shop, the local shop. And then I went to see Bilqis, and she was indeed married. And then slowly I found out that most of my friends were married, all aged 14. And I could only manage to find one girl that wasn't married in my class. And this is really important, because to me, the fear that I faced at that time is not only about the fear of what the Taliban were going to do to me, but also what the society did. And I think this is something we really need to remember. It wasn't the Taliban that married off 40+ girls that I knew personally. It was a society that wasn't very friendly to girls, and I am really scared of that as well. I also am very scared of the potential for civil war, because at the time, as the Taliban took over once, and then again, and then the third time they stayed, and every time they took over and they left, we experienced homes being raided. Not the Taliban, but the other warring factions, they entered my house, and they tried to take me and another family member. As they entered the downstairs in the basement where I was hiding, funnily enough, I was hiding in plain sight because I was hiding behind like this. Anyway, so that's also something that later on I laughed at, but at the time, so they came to get us, and of course they couldn't, and they couldn't find us. And these are the things that makes me fearful when I think about what are the options as we move on. Is another civil war an option? I also remember going back to Kabul. I am in love with Kabul. This is my true love. And I remember going back, and as soon as Kabul fell, and I really wanted to jump and dance on the streets. And I thought that was it. And then a few weeks ago, I got out of Afghanistan as part of my job. I was going back on the 17th. And then on the 15th, I was talking with my colleagues, and they said that there was, the Taliban had come very close. And I thought this is again a rumor. And then we had to really push, we had to find some money to pay everybody's salaries for the next few months. We had to think about what we were going to do in terms of our work, because our work is peace building, and we have and we want to work in environments like that. So leaving was not an option. Leaving for me is not an option. Probably I look at Kabul airport every day using an app, and I have been pestering UN to see when their flights open, because I want to go back. And I think there's a space for me and my colleagues to continue and try and build peace. The last perspective, sorry, I went on a little bit. The last perspective is that I'm a feminist, and my feminist idols are some of the people that were due to speak today, and I hope they can join us. I want to say that some of the two people that were going to speak before me, I know that they haven't been able to join us, but I want to tell you that Mahbouba Seraj is an amazing woman. I always joke with her. She calls me her daughter and I call her, and she calls not only me a daughter, she calls all of us her daughter, and she gives us a big hug. She's got a big personality, and I always tell her that few years later I'm going to be the Mahbouba Seraj, because we share a lot. She has green eyes like me, and she's she likes to tell it as it is. And many times in the last few months, we have sat down and we have tried to get women's voices on the negotiating table. Sometimes she got angry and said that there's something cooking. So she was very observant. She's full of love and a strong, amazing woman. A few days ago, I was in trouble as people were leaving, women were stranded, and she really stood up. Pashtana Durrani is somebody who we have tried to engage in our work with young people, and she's such an inspiration, such an amazing woman. I always see the future of Afghanistan and the way she in her strength. She's a very typically Pashtun, tall, amazing woman, and she is changing lives. We were working to see if we could work on the reproductive health with girls with her organization. We were looking to see if we could use sports and girls empowerment with her organization. And she's going to do amazing things, and I have such belief in her. And I listen to her every word, and she's so brave to have decided to maintain her public appearances. So this is what informs me, and this is what sort of keeps me going. And in terms of, I talk a lot with different organizations from a feminist perspective, Afghan women perspective, and from my professional views. And all of this comes together, and there are a few things I want to highlight and what should be the priorities as we move on and work with Afghan women in the near future, sort of midterm, sort of near and midterm future. One of them is we really need to be careful in dealing with information that's coming out of Afghanistan. There's a lot of misinformation going around, and I believe that there's an information war going on in Afghanistan, and the primary target are women. And sometimes the psychological effect it has could be worse than the effect if somebody attacked someone physically. Every single day I hear about rumors, and unfortunately the Western media is not really being helpful here. I have in the last few weeks, last week or so, I've listened to single sourced third sort of, what is it? Yeah, I forgot, I'm forgetting my English. So it's sort of like a third-hand information that has been touted as the truth. And that really creates a lot of panic, that pushes people to make harsh decisions. I met a woman in Kabul a few weeks ago, actually, and we were talking, and this was a series of talks that I organized between professional women, young professional women, and professional women who continued to work during Taliban period, so that they can exchange some stories and build some resilience together. And one of the women, we asked her, and she's again an amazing feminist. We asked her what does she regret doing during Taliban time, and she said getting married. She said that suddenly she felt everything has fallen down, and the only way she could safeguard herself was to get into a relationship, a marriage of convenience. She went on to say that it turned out to be a good decision at the end, because she got some support from a very good partner. But then again, when we spread misinformation, it makes women make rash decisions. I slept for many months just before and during the Taliban rule last time with a big knife, and I wanted to kill myself because I thought something bad is going to happen. Now, nothing bad happened to me, but that really affected me. I sometimes tell my kids that the reason why I'm so short is because I lived under a lot of stress at that time. And for a 16-year-old girl, we really need to deal with access to information and really sieve information. And that time I only had access to CNN or BBC radio and things like that. Now there's a lot more access to information. It's really killing the spirit of women, and we really need to look at that. We also need to talk about continuation of humanitarian aid in Afghanistan. I completely agree with women that say that we should not support the government if it is led by the Taliban. Of course, I mean, history tells us to not do that. But the space for these women is on one end of the spectrum. And then it's a whole spectrum of how we engage with the Taliban, from total disengagement to total engagement. And there's an array of in between. And this is where I sit. I sit in the middle. And I think that Taliban should be talked to so that we could continue aid. Complete closure of all the doors towards the Taliban is going to harm women and harm men in my country and harm children, more importantly. So it's really, for me, it's important to do that. But then more than that, it's important that we have variety of different opinions, and we should not push ourselves as women to have a joint stance on this issue, because we never know which one would work. So we have to try many different methods. And then in terms of what would work with mediation with the Taliban, talking with the Taliban, my opinion is, and this is also what our organization believes in as well, and based on a 40-year experience of working in similar environments, is that, that we should mediate at various different levels. I really think that women should be given skills to negotiate at the very, very bottom of the society around very small issues, not only with the Taliban, but with men, other gatekeepers in their lives as well. They need to be able to negotiate around stopping child marriages. They need to be able to have the right skills and belief in themselves to stop other violations of women's rights. And then moving on, they should work with their community to do that. I remember talking with them, as part of a piece of research that I was doing, I asked women, how did you get rid of the burqa after the Taliban time? Barely any of them said that they got rid of it because the Taliban left. They told me a complex story of how a group of women came together from the same household, from the same block of flats, and they planned, and then they convinced their husbands and brothers who had grown up under the Taliban, who were very much sort of, their mindset had changed. So they jointly convinced everybody. So one man got convinced, and then slowly a lot of other men got convinced as well. And I see that soft influence that women can have through home, through traditional mechanisms, and we always focus around the traditional power dynamics and mechanisms of men, but an equivalent exists for women as well, especially older women, experienced women, women with education. And I'll be very quick, I know I'm taking up time, but when I was in Afghanistan, I'm very interested in sexual and reproductive health in Afghanistan. I worked with another group of women on a piece of research. We looked at an area where the Ministry of Health had gone and given information about contraceptive use. All the women had the information, but none of them made the decision on which one to use until there was a funeral. And all these women from similar sort of backgrounds in the same area gathered in this gathering, and then they started talking. Did you see the woman from the Ministry of Health? Is she, did you get the information? And then slowly they started to process information. They asked me, what do you think? What do people do in London? And then there was a midwife there. They asked her, they shared their concerns. And then when they went back, that's when they made decisions. So these women's gatherings, these informal things, these things could be a place where we could, through which we could still influence. So at the family level, at the women's spaces level, and then moving on to the wider society with power brokers, with religious elders, there needs to be constant mediation. And also, I don't think we should, I think we should learn from past mistakes. And one thing that really bugged me was that we created an army of women upon whom we put all of the advocacy. We shouldn't be doing that anymore. What we should do is we should diversify. We shouldn't bring in women under the umbrella of a single organization and make them into a target. We should bring in women from the traditional backgrounds, women from education, women from aid and so on, and then make sure that that they advocate as within their own role. So these are some of the things that we want to do. In terms of, I'll just finish off with saying that I can see that there's a lot of our international partners here, and a lot of you, I'm assuming, would be facing Afghan women in the as they arrive in your countries or in Europe and beyond. There are a few things I want to suggest on what could happen to Afghan women in Europe and beyond. One of them is that that let's not assume that some of the problems that women face in Afghanistan are going to disappear. We were fighting, and we have to continue this fight against misogyny, against violence against women, and all of these issues. So I want the sisterhood to be extended to these new Afghan women, and we shouldn't assume about them, anything about them. What we should do is create these spaces so that they could assimilate and they could become part of a sisterhood in Europe, and organizations such as yours can be effective there. The other thing is access to information. I was very disappointed that there was a disconnect between the information given to Afghan people as they were given visas to evacuate from Afghanistan, and the asylum system in European countries. I wonder if people in Afghanistan, if they knew that they're not likely to be given full refugee status, if there is going to be restrictions on their movement or their right to work in Europe, whether they would have chosen to leave Afghanistan. We have been sold a very elaborate dream. And as a former refugee, I think this is not right. So please give them the right information. Help them make the right decisions for themselves. And this dream, I think on the 31st, we're going to get a shock once the evacuations end. But through next year or so, we're going to continuously feel the shock, because people who have left Afghanistan may not only find it hard to assimilate in Europe, but also may feel betrayed by the unfriendly immigration systems in Europe as well. So please be there for them, and one way you could be there for them is to link them up, to the women inside Afghanistan. I know many women who have left in the last few years because of the risk they were taking. And one thing that kept them going has been this feeling of usefulness, and they are incredibly useful. So please help those of us that are going to stay inside Afghanistan and link us up with women there. When I talk with our donors and our partner agencies and search within our own organization, I always say that we need to make sure that we're not restrictive in the way we define Afghan women's networks to include the only women that have stayed behind. We should not sort of do a value judgment to say this is a good Afghan woman, this is not a good Afghan woman that have escaped or stayed. We shouldn't do all of that. What we should do is we should make sure that all of these women that have left for their wellness sake, but also for our wellness sake that are going to stay in Afghanistan, for us to talk and to share. And the very last point I want to make is to please include Afghan voices in your advocacy in Europe. I'm very disappointed that I'm usually the only Afghan woman. I get to places because I lead an international organization in Afghanistan. Doors are open to me. However, I do not see where I speak to policymakers, to donor agencies, I do not see the voices of Afghan women, and they're often represented by gatekeepers. So please include us in the higher up conversations, even those of us that completely do not agree with the party lines. I'm going to stop there. I understand that I've taken a lot of your times, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Zuhra. I just wanted to ask you, there are several women asking if they can quote you or share a screenshot. Obviously, they're worried for your safety. So let us know on that aspect. Thank you.
Yes, you can. I mean, this is going to be live, so no, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you. Go ahead, Farah.
Okay, thank you so much, Zuhra, for your testimony, for your advice, and for standing up with and for Afghan women since I know you. And that's a great job you're doing. Keep doing it, and we will work with you. Now I ask Meena Nezami. She's the founder of Girls Up Afghanistan. And I will ask her to come and speak to us. Meena Nezami, please.
Hi, Farah. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm glad to be in the presence of such incredible and influential women leaders and having this opportunity to speak with you all today. Well, first and foremost, I have to mention that I'm in a safe place. I'm out of Afghanistan, and that would be the reason that I'm able to talk today. And otherwise, I think there are so many voices, especially of girls in Afghanistan, that we need to hear, that we need to hear from them, but we are not able to do that because there are so many restrictions right now in Afghanistan. You know, you sometimes don't know where to start from. Beginning with the economic situation of Afghanistan and the security that is so destabilized, you know, for over so many years. But now, as we all saw the panic all around Afghanistan and including the outside world with the Taliban takeover, we saw people, you know, thinking that Afghanistan wouldn't be the same Afghanistan that we want it to be, you know. And that would be a very fair reason to talk about, because what we experienced and what we have from our past, that, you know, gives us an ability to justify that what is going to happen in the future. Well, I think it is high time for us to, you know, stop talking about who won the war and who lost the war, and start focusing on nation building, on peace building, you know, through political dialogue and through peace negotiations in a way that is not violent for anyone. Now, yeah, so Afghanistan, to give a brief introduction about Afghanistan, I think it's the reason that there is war, from what most of us might know, is the geopolitical location of Afghanistan. That is so important for so many countries. It is, as you all know, located in the heart of Asia. So every other superpower wants to be in Afghanistan and to have control over all the other axes and their allies, you know. So that is one reason that the superpowers wants to be in Afghanistan, involved in Afghanistan, any other non-state actors that we name of. So this would be one reason that Afghanistan is so destabilized for so many years. And we are tired of it. Afghan people are tired of it. We cannot imagine another few more decades of war that, you know, our children or maybe the new generation of Afghanistan will see. Not to mention that, you know, it wouldn't be fair that if we do not recognize the achievements that our people made in Afghanistan, especially women and girls in the past few years, we cannot, you know, let those achievements go unrecognized just because another power comes to the country. And I don't think that would be ever happening because Afghanistan is a country that will not go back to the 20 years that what it was, because with the Taliban takeover and the new government, I think there will be more peaceful negotiations, and people have to talk about it, because this country is not going back to 20 years ago, as many narratives we keep hearing from, because it cannot go back. And speaking of women's rights in Afghanistan, when I started Girl Up Afghanistan, which is the first club in the region, and this was the reason that I wanted to give every Afghan girl a chance to be her own leader. I wanted them to feel that they have a power to change, that their voices are so important that it should not go unrecognized. And I wanted to be the extension of them into a whole new world full of opportunities, growth, and success. And we can only achieve that by giving women and girls a chance to be who they want to be in a community, give them a chance to be involved, you know, to contribute to the society. And it is high time that we recognize that we cannot stop women from not contributing to the society, and because Afghan women are inevitable, and by now we need to stop any kind of violence towards women. I think all forms of violence are not acceptable. And also Afghans' desire for peace is unprecedented. It is not simply associated with ending the physical violence of war. It also includes the respect for basic human rights, tackling the humanitarian crisis, the alleviation of financial condition that is going on right now, and a good responsible government, and that includes everyone, you know, and more importantly, access to basic services like healthcare and education for all. Now, so ending violence in all forms would be the first step that we can take to move forward. And we saw in Afghanistan that poverty and corruption, and especially the growth of the opium, were the very reasons that the economy was falling down. And these were the two major drivers of this conflict, and addressing these factors is important to establishing security. And as far as I think that the women networks like the European Union and other women networks or the international community can contribute is to commit and deliver not only humanitarian aid to the Afghan people, or, you know, take refugees, which is very helpful for many of the Afghans who are in Afghanistan and they feel threatened, but also support to the reconstruction and developmental activities throughout the country, you know, to make Afghanistan a place that allows people to live within the country. You know, we cannot just keep running away for the rest of our lives. we need our country to be stable for us to live there. And so we request the international community to, if possible, to carry the new Afghan government, whoever is in the power, to be responsible for the lives of the civilians, that not should be taken in causalities, in attacks, and to tackle corruption and criminalism, and to produce support for the native peace building and conflict resolution initiatives. And also we urge the upcoming Afghan government to pursue justice, acknowledgement, and reconciliation, and redress for abuses caused throughout the past 3 decades of conflict. And we also call upon all the non-state actors to discontinue the targeting of civilians and any specific grievances and demands that needs to be addressed should be through a political dialogue instead of violence. Yeah, so one question that I've always been asked by people is that if girls will have a future in Afghanistan in any way possible, through education or work. As far as I think that, people do fear the Taliban, that they wouldn't allow them to work or study or be violent. This is the perception that I have, that most of us have. But for us to move forward, I think we need to look into a larger perspective. Now, we do not excuse anyone who have done the crimes in the past, but we need to look a way forward, because the new generation of Afghanistan, we are tired of what has been happening for over the decades and what our parents have been through. We need a way forward. Now, whoever is in the power, they need to respect the basic human rights. They need to stand firm and responsible for what they do. Now, that is what I need from the international community, to take and hold responsible whoever is in the power in Afghanistan, to not cause, violent attacks and, human lives at the cost of human lives, to bring peace or negotiate whatever it is. Now, that's, I think, all we can do from the beginning and from the start, and then we can go forward for the other systematic oppressions and other systematic inequalities to address. Thank you everyone for having me. This is Meena.
Meena, thank you so much for your participation and also what you said. It's true, we Afghan women cannot go 20 years back. If it means peace, you have to be peace building. And like you say, we have to look into ways forward, like you and Zuhra both said. And I think all women in Afghanistan agree with this, and all people in Afghanistan agree with this, because we are tired of war. The war is going more than 45 years, and it's decades of people that are growing up with this war, and they're hoping and hoping and hoping. So, and to respect basic human rights, this is something we should fight for. Basic rights for men, women, children, but mostly for women, who are the voiceless population in Afghanistan. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to welcome Mahbouba Seraj, who just joined us. We were waiting for you. Thank you so much for joining us from Afghanistan, and we would love to listen to you and hear what you say.
Thank you very much, everybody, for having me. I'm terribly sorry. I don't know. It's like I think I'm losing my mind a little bit, and with all of that's going on and being in Afghanistan, I think everything goes crazy around me. But anyways, I'm glad I'm here. And thank you for having me. What is it exactly that you would like to know? What do you want me to talk about? About what is going on right now in Afghanistan. The Talibs are here. We don't have a government. We don't have banks. We don't have a system that protects us. We don't have anything. And that is making the whole situation a lot worse than what it is. I mean, everything is really bad. And the reason is because you know, because we don't know who's running this country, we don't know who's in charge. So when you have this void of power, like the way we have in Afghanistan, then anything in its worst is possible. So we're all sitting here and waiting to see why we can't get a coalition or an all-inclusive government. I mean, is it really that hard? What is it that is stopping it? Because one thing I know for sure, and I cannot say it how exactly, but the one thing I know for sure is that there is a lot of hands playing in here. There's a lot of interests are being involved in here. And it's those interests and those hands that they are not letting us go ahead and do what we are supposed to be doing, or what they are supposed to be doing, which in turn is going to affect us directly. So the women of Afghanistan, as always, they are being the victims of all of this. Because if anything goes wrong, if anything goes another way, or if anything stops, or if anything is not done the right way, the effect of it is directly on the women. So here we are. What we want from the international community and from the world is to help us get really something to get this country on its feet. We cannot be doing this anymore. We really are in trouble. So how is it going to be done? I don't know. But we really need to get people on board and start this country running, because this way is going to be a lot of other complications that are going to get involved. There's going to be a lot of other things that are going to come up, and then what are we going to do? Right now, for the few days that nothing has happened so far, we have ISIS that entered. So this is brand new about ISIS getting involved with the Taliban. And that bombardment at the airport, that was the work of ISIS. So if it was the work of ISIS, where were they all of this time? And if they are that close that they can actually do what they did and kill 170 Afghans plus all of those Americans, at the airport, and just enter there and do it. So that means that they are really something that we really need to take care of, because otherwise it's going to be another 20 years of war in Afghanistan. And this time it's going to be ISIS. So where are we? What are we supposed to do? And where is the world? How is the world looking at all of this? This is where I don't understand. Also, more than 100,000 people got on the planes and left Afghanistan. And none of the civil society, none of the human rights defenders, none of the lawyers, none of these women that they are in absolute danger are in that group. So who did they gather? 100 and something thousand people that they left. Who are they? We don't know that either. So what I'm trying to say is that the more we live, or the more we are kind of, getting into this unknown, the worse the situation is going to be. And it's going to be that much more difficult for everybody to control it. And that goes for the Taliban too. They will not be able to control it this easy. The Taliban, when they came to Afghanistan 20-something years ago, Afghanistan had about 13, 14 million people. Today, we are 35 million people. So how is it, what they're going to do, how they're going to do it without us? If we don't get involved in building this Afghanistan of ours, it's not going to be done without us. The women, without us, the people, without us, the young generation, it will not happen. That much I know, for sure.
Thank you so much, dear Mahbouba Jan. I just want to ask you, you are inside Afghanistan and
Yes.
We are outside. We see the news and we hear what is being told to us. Please tell us what is going on with Afghan women inside Afghanistan. I mean, how is the situation? I know there's fear, I know people don't get out of their houses, but exactly what is going on from what you see on the ground?
Well, you know, what I see on the ground and what I see actually gripping everybody is fear. It's really fear. Fear is crippling everyone. Fear has been absolutely horrible, because it has gotten everybody's attention and everybody's fearful. And because of that, we really don't do or can't do anything right now. Besides, we cannot do anything, not only because of fear, but also because of the fact that we don't have anybody in the country. We want to talk to the Taliban, for example, but we cannot because they don't see us. We don't know how to approach them. When we approached, some of the women approached Abdullah and 𝐂𝐍, and they didn't say anything to the Taliban, because I'm sure the Taliban thinks, right now the question of women is the last thing we really want to think about. I mean, that's the absolutely the minimum. But at the same time, a lot of these Afghan women, they are in fear, and the fear is something that is also happening right now on the streets of Kabul, because these people, they just take a whip and they start whipping people. You do not whip people into obedience and into being a proper countryman or woman. You can't just whip them and teach them to. In other words, with a whip, you want to make him a Muslim, a better Muslim, a different Muslim. What do you want to do with the whip? What is the whip doing? We are not animals. We are people. You don't whip people. But that's what they are doing. They're whipping. They're whipping everybody. So these are the things that are really scaring these women to the point of making everybody absolutely not being able to move. We are all really crippled. So what I'm hoping for them, that I hope that they will be, the ones that they can leave Afghanistan, for them to leave. I'm not planning to leave, so for me, doesn't make much of a difference, in honest truth. I'm here. But the ones that they want to leave, I really wish for them to leave, and they are in danger, there is no doubt, because the Taliban, we don't know what is going to be their reaction, really. Once they get power, once they are settled, how they are going to be dealing with all of us. Right now, it's just whipping here and whipping there. Then what is going to happen? They're going to keep on whipping everybody and whipping the woman to stay home, whipping the woman not to go to school, whipping the woman to what? This is the part I don't get. So this is really upsetting all of us very much, very much. And that's the fear that everybody's staying home and not getting out. We cannot get out.
Yes.
They cannot get out. They don't feel safe.
And for us, Afghan women outside, we hear the news and we feel hopeless or helpless, because the international community just said they're not going to do anything. They left us. They just left without doing anything. And that's the fear we have. What can be done to involve them again? We talk about building peace, like Meena and Zuhra talked about, and that's what you're saying, exactly the same thing. But how do we do this? This is the question. This is the question you ask. This is the question we all ask. Thank you so much. We will ask, I think there will be a lot of questions from you and from Meena John and from Zuhra John. And now I will like to invite Gita Saghal. She's from India, UK, and she's from Feminist Dissent. Gita, would you like to take the floor, please?
Thank you very much. I'm listening to you speak and hearing your determination. And I know that in many countries across the world, women have survived extremely repressive regimes. And they've not only survived them, but they've actually been able to negotiate at times. To be in Somalia, for instance, the state has been in collapse for decades. But women were able to negotiate with people, with many of the warlords and the clans and so on. But what some Somali women said to me was that when Al-Shabaab came, it was far more difficult to negotiate because they didn't have the same ties, the family ties, and the common understanding about the society. I won't speak for long. I feel intense shame as both a British person and an Indian about what our governments are doing. Britain, of course, has had a long and problematic relationship with Afghanistan, being a major aid donor, also being part of the occupying forces and part of the violations committed there against Afghan people by the army. But on the other hand, they have abandoned their partners in Afghanistan completely. And they've done it, I think, from my perspective as a British person, because of a very long push by the security services, intelligence, the army, and so on, who looks at certain fundamentalists as partners across the world. This is true. So that they dislike and distrust people who really are fighting for human rights. Beyond the rhetoric, the partners that they look for are people that they think can control the region. And that is why the Americans did the deal with the Taliban. And so I say myself, I understand that Afghan women have to deal with the situation they're in. From my point of view, from outside, I say to the US and UK, shame on you. Shame on you, US and UK. You have engaged in a process where you have enriched yourselves enormously and then betrayed the Afghan people. So I feel bad about that. India, historically, people don't talk about countries, but it is the duty of Indian citizens to call for as much solidarity with Afghans as possible. India has cancelled existing visas, named e-visas. There are student organizations in India that are fighting for students to come, Afghan students already, students to be able to get them to come and study. I'm just going to end now because I'm sure you want to hear other women from the region, from Afghanistan speaking. I just want to say that what we are trying to build, I think we need a huge civil society response, and this movement is part of it. The international community, by and large, has abandoned Afghanistan to the Taliban and to all these other forces that are now making their homes in Afghanistan, various other violent groups. And I think that the war may or may not have ended, but there is a genocidal politics that's going to be in place that is going to target people, and we have to be aware of that. I say this is in India because we are facing that kind of attack on minorities, even within the framework of a constitutional government and an elected government. Muslim minorities, Christians are under attack in India. We are fighting for our secularism. We are fighting for our constitution. Pakistanis are having similar fights over there. We have to build the voices of all of us across the region to support Afghans in Afghanistan and also outside, and to put pressure on this international community that has in fact disappeared. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gita. I agree with you 100%. What we can do outside Afghanistan right now is to put as much as pressure on civil society, on politicians, on governments, on policymakers to really look into the situation in Afghanistan, and especially in the situation of Afghan women and girls and children. Thank you so much. Now I invite Reka Safrany. She's the president of European Women's Lobby, and the floor is yours, Reka.